Welcome to Crisis
with
Kira
and Isis. Happy Halloween.
Boogly boogly.
Ooh. Today we're going to be talking about Halloween, our traditions, the history of it, kind of giving like a little spiel. And we hope you guys stay tuned in to hear about all these great things.
Dude, this is our first late recording episode. Or this is our first late night.
It's our first
episode.
delirium episode.
Yeah, which I'm kind of excited. I feel like I'm feeling the
late night vibes.
Yeah, the freaks come out at night, you know?
Hold up, I'm
I feel
feeling really overwhelmed with all that's going on.
You look so funny.
I'm having a sensory overload.
I just can't wait to see your intro and just cut to this. First of all, oh my god, I went to Trader Joe's today in a dress, and it put me in the best mood ever.
Was it not freezing?
Honestly, I probably felt better after that than
my whole birthday.
Yeah.
Also, it's been freezing.
Yeah, it's starting to get chilly.
And all the leaves are falling officially. It's no longer colors.
I know, there's
it's just
piles.
Yeah. So, speaking of
romping them.
Halloween, we did some research on the history of certain things. So we're going to touch on that. And we're going to talk about what we do, what we want to do, and kind of just give you guys some background and some history on some of the spooky things that go on.
Sorry, I was just trying not to burp. But I hope it didn't just catch.
At least I can't smell it.
Oh, I think we didn't address our costumes at all.
Oh, so for Halloween this year, we are
the geese from Aristocats.
Do we look like
if
them?
you haven't seen it,
it's a great
it's
Halloween
a Disney movie from the 70s, and it's actually great.
And the jazz playlist in there.
Ooh, we don't have an Uncle Waldo though.
We should have had Drew come in as a prop. Okay, so what are your traditions?
Well, there's some, because it's bobbing for apples. I did once for my birthday once when I was 8. That wasn't a family tradition we had,
But it needs
I think
to
I
be?
only did it once. I don't know if it needs to be. I read something about it, and it said, in the research, it said, apples are obviously a big part of fall, and then there was one tradition where they would peel an apple and they keep it into one strand, the skin, and then they would spin and throw it over their shoulder, and whatever letter it came out as, that was their future lover's first initial.
Yes.
But then bobbing for apples, it was the first person to get an apple with their teeth was the first to get married in the new year.
Yeah, so I have a thing here saying by 43 AD, the Roman Empire had conquered a majority of Celtic territory. In the course of the 400 years that they had ruled the Celtic lands, 2 festivals of Roman origin were created with the tradition of Celtic celebration of, how do you say it?
Samhain?
Samhain?
Yeah,
I hate the way.
It's Gaelic.
I hate Gaelic spelling.
No, it's insane.
Because it's not, that should be illegal.
No
Samhain
sense.
is spelled Smhain. Anyways, but it's, I'm not going to talk about the first one, but the second day was to honor Pomona, the Roman goddess of fruit and trees. The symbol of Pomona is the apple, and the incorporation of the celebration to the Samhain probably explains the tradition of bobbing for apples that is practiced today on Halloween.
Wait, fruit? Is it just fruit?
No.
Goddess of fruit and fertility?
Yeah, fruit and trees, and her
fruit and
symbol
trees.
was an apple particularly.
Okay. The Roman Empire?
Mm-hmm.
I thought they had more of a thing with pomegranates.
They probably have it somewhere
Or the
in
Greek?
there too. The Greek.
The Greeks more pomegranate? I don't know.
know.
I feel like pomegranates were more...
I know. I think it
thing.
might just be for this specific goddess.
Yeah.
But so that's what I have about apples. Go ahead.
Oh, pumpkins. Hold on. I gotta I honestly feel like pumpkins were a thing. My dad, it's probably one of his favorite things to grow on the farm. He always...
Squash, zucchini.
There was multiple seasons where he would have a huge patch of pumpkins, and we would have loads of pumpkins come out of there.
Big pumpkins or pie pumpkins?
Big, little, tiny,
Edible?
medium. Some he would plant he would just
Chuck
go
it
nuts.
out?
You don't even know. I wish he did more like of the fairy tale ones, though. I don't think he
Those
ever
are
did
really
those
cute.
because those are so cute.
Mm-hmm.
But and then he would like put them out on the side of the road and be like, "Take them."
Aww.
But then like my first year of college, he had
Oh,
a
yeah.
giant pumpkin patch.
I remember this.
And I brought probably like 30 to 50 pumpkins to Reno. And I literally had like 15 in my apartment, and I gave everybody I ran into a pumpkin.
Yeah.
It seemed like.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's pumpkins everywhere, and they were there forever.
Yeah.
Like, they never died. They were, like, everlasting pumpkins.
I had pumpkins. Yeah. Oh, my God. Pumpkins.
Up until the summer.
But, yes, my dad's got a real thing for pumpkins.
Any other major traditions?
Not really.
For me, Halloween's a little bit complicated. I think my parents, my dad in particular, cared about Halloween. I don't really recall this, but there's always a picture of me when my parents were together dressed up as Halloween. Like, my dad has this picture of me as a clown, and I'm like maybe like 1 or 2 years old. So I'm like, if people thought it was like a doll that they had that he was standing next to, and it was like a picture of me, and I think he had that like on his desk for a while. And then there's like this one of my sister where she's the rag doll, the red one. Do you know what I'm talking about? With like curly hair and like a bonnet.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what that's called. I can't
Raggedy
see.
Ann.
Raggedy Ann. She has a really cute picture of her dressed up as
yeah,
Raggedy Ann. Like adorable. And then after that kind of Halloween, my parents separated. And then when we were in LA, because of the Armenian community, we didn't really do Halloween very well. And it wasn't until I was like a teenager or like a tweenager when we could go like to the other neighborhoods. But it wasn't really like that big of a thing. So I did prefer Vegas for Halloween for sure. Also, the entire neighborhoods took it seriously.
Yeah.
So in terms of like traditions, I don't necessarily have any. I personally really like Halloween because I feel like it's a low expectation holiday. Like, no one else matters on Halloween. Like, you can do it by yourself. You could do it with others. There's no really gifts involved. So there's no expectation. All it is just to go out and have fun. So I particularly love the holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. I was going to say also the infamous elementary school fall festival with the infamous cakewalk.
That part. So I did want to read this. So basically it says here that Halloween origins date back to ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. The Celts who lived 2,000 years ago, mostly in the area that is now Ireland and the United Kingdom and northern France, celebrated their own New Year on November 1st. So this day marked the end of the summer and the harvest and the beginning of the dark, cold winter. Time of the year was often associated with human death. Celts believed that on the night before New Year's, the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead became blurred. On the night of October 31st, they celebrated Samhain, when it was believed that ghosts and the dead returned to Earth. In addition to causing trouble and damaging crops, Celts thought that the presence of the otherworldly spirits made it easier for druids or Celtic priests to make predictions about the future for people entirely dependent on the volatile natural world. These prophecies were an important source of comfort during the long, dark winter.
I read somewhere that they first started carving turnips.
Yes, I have that noted
funny.
here. Well, okay, so what I have on that is, okay, so there's two things. One was that they would build a massive fire. Which I think is brilliant. We should bring the fire back. So they'd build a massive fire, and that kind of ended in the early half of the 20th century, and it was replaced with two things. Yes, the turnips, but the turnips were also lanterns, so people could walk at night. But they would also use because the fire
I don't
was.
think the turnips were lanterns.
So there's
I think
a part
they
in
had
here.
lanterns, and they would carve turnips.
So there's like kind of cross intersects here, it seems like, because it says that basically the fire, the point of it was to guide the spirits.
Yeah.
And so they replaced that with candles, and then lantern, like to hold the candle, parsnips, I think, were part of it, and that's why they're carved to like still have like light. And then from there, they realized that pumpkins were bigger and made more sense, I guess.
I read that they just started carving turnips into scary faces to like put in their windows to like ward off the evil spirits. And then I was kind of confused where they started lighting them, because then in another place it explained all about like jack-o'-lanterns and like why they're even called jack-o'-lanterns, and just because people at night, like watchmen with lanterns, and they didn't know what to call them, and like just a really common name is Jack, so they just call him like Jack of the Lantern. And then, yeah, so then there's the carved turnips, and then the Jack of the Lantern, and then at some point they realized pumpkins are like easier to carve, and then if they wanted to put light in them, I'm sure it like just made more sense, because I feel like just turnips aren't like big enough, and like I saw a picture of one and it didn't look hollowed out, like
just carved.
Yeah, so I'm a little confused on that, but at some point the carved face is to ward off the evil spirits, and the lights got incorporated.
Right.
Because I also read that the jack-o'-lantern was to like ward off the face was to ward off the evil spirits, but also the light was to like welcome
The good ones.
your deceased ancestors.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I personally do not enjoy carving pumpkins. I think it's a messy, irritating process.
And you gotta cut yourself.
And yeah, you never have the right tools, and it's just like, and you just
Yeah, the tools you buy are always terrible.
Yeah, and it's just like and they get rotten, and so I feel like they're great when you have like a family. Otherwise, they're a complete waste of time and energy. Just paint the thing, and it makes it so much cleaner and easier. But turnips, I would love to whittle a little turnip, you know, and then you just like. And goodbye turnip, but you can't even eat the pumpkin either, so it's like,
yeah. Would you ever roast the seeds? We would sometimes do that.
I think
they're never as good as you want them to be.
No, they're never like, and they're always like, you can't. They're also, compared to sunflower seeds, which we eat like more regularly, those are so easy to like open. And pumpkin seeds, I know you can eat the whole thing, but
yeah, but then you're just like,
yeah, you're like chewing on.
Actually, could be some good fiber.
So is corn. So one of the other things I want to talk about, so we already talked about how like from the Celtics, it went to the Romans. So after the Romans, the church. Ooh.
Catholic Church.
Yeah, and so the popes wanted to like, make these holidays more church friendly. So because people would be more likely to join the church if their favorite festivals remained to some degree. So basically on November 1st, they used to think about all the saints as martyrs. Like the day was moved from like May to November. And then like sometime after that, they wanted to celebrate the All Souls Day. And that was the day to honor the dead, which is also kind of like how we get to like Dia de los Muertos today. But basically All Souls Day was similar to Samaway, Wahahavna, whatever it is. Yeah. And they had big bonfires, parades, and they all dressed in costume as saints, angels, and devils, which I think is actually really great.
Does it make you feel better about dressing as a devil?
Just a little bit. So All Souls Day turned to All Hallows, to the All Hallow Mass as like the day before Saints' Day. And so the night before it...
I heard Hallows meant like to sanctify.
Quite could have been.
I read that somewhere.
And so basically All Saints' Day slowly turned into All Hallows Eve, and then eventually Halloween.
How do we get that ween in there? Where the fork did that come from?
Ween.
I feel like All Hallows Eve makes like more sense, but I don't know where the ween. Who knows? I don't know. But I know like...
I don't know.
Like the Celtics already had like the relationship of the time of year relating to death and then their own way to honor the dead. But I know less about that than how the Catholics took it and then also made like a Day of the Dead. Well, I guess because the Celtics believe, right, that like the veil was thinned and they could more likely to be able to talk to the dead.
Right.
Or like do divination. Divination?
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 I think it might be divination. I don't know.
Divination.
I know what you're talking
Divination.
about. We probably shouldn't.
She
should attend us a text. And it's be like the most obvious thing ever.
I'm just never mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any other? I don't know. I mean, our traditions are hella basic. Like, they're just the good old American funsies.
Right. So, speaking of the All-American, how did we get where we are from what was going on with the All Saints, right? So, basically, and this is kind of obvious, I guess, but not really. So Halloween was extremely limited in colonial New England because of the rigid Protestant beliefs. Who would have guessed? However,
I was gesturing to my bonnet.
customs from different European ethnic groups and American Indians meshed, and we kind of started seeing this like emergence of Halloween come along. And basically, the first celebration included these play parties, which were public events held to celebrate the harvest. Neighbors would share stories about the dead, tell each other fortunes, dance, and sing. However, these colonial Halloween festivities kind of became time to tell ghost stories and become like very mischievous. And by the 19th century, an annual autumn festivals were common, but Halloween was not yet celebrated. So that's where we were. However, in the second half in the 19th century, America was flooded with immigrants. And those Irish fleeing from the potato famine helped popularize our current celebration of Halloween.
They brought the turnips. They're like, check this out. You just put this in your window? Pretty cool.
Pretty sick. So I honestly think that's kind of interesting in the sense that, like, I love an autumn gathering. Mm-hmm. Like, I really enjoy that community sense.
Also, like, because it is, like, time of big harvest.
Right. End of harvest. Get all this while it's good.
Mm-hmm. Get all fat before the winter.
Yeah. And, I mean, Thanksgiving is similar to that, but having one that has some kind of spiritual, spooky background to it makes it, because Thanksgiving is all about giving and being grateful. Yeah. And in American culture, we don't have really a Memorial Day. Like, we have Memorial Day, but that's mostly for like our fallen soldiers.
Yeah, that's very specific.
Yeah, and so like in the Armenian background, like there is like a holiday for the dead, which I think is which I think is really important to have.
I agree.
So being that the United States doesn't have it at all, I think Halloween having this like remembrance should be brought back.
Me too. I was gonna say there's like two things happening. It's like celebrating harvest, but then like having the day to like acknowledge whether you think that, you know, the veil between the dead and the living is thinned or not. Taking a day to remember our ancestors,
our loved ones,
I think would be pretty meaningful.
Yes, I concur.
And it's just funny because here we are dressed as geese and it's just a fun holiday right now, but holidays, you know, even in the name Holy Day, like, they're originally all very meaningful.
Right.
And not to say that what we do now for Halloween isn't meaningful, but it's definitely, like...
It doesn't have a spiritual meaning to it. So even, like, Christmas is really fun, but, like, you know, if you're OG about it, you're still going to, you know, go to church or have, like, some kind of Sabbath with your family of sorts. And like, you know, American culture has obviously like kind of removed a lot of that for a bunch of people, but Halloween still happens to have the least amount of importance.
Yeah, which is honestly crazy.
Because it's the most celebrated.
Well, but also like remembering the dead seems like a pretty like not unimportant thing to do.
Right, and it's very secular, I feel like, because like part of the issue, or it's like very open to all groups.
Right.
Like inherent, like Christmas, okay, kind of exclusive, Easter exclusive, you know, all the other ones have like whatever, ruffling my feathers. But Halloween and like the idea of having some kind of remembrance for the dead, whatever you do, I feel like that is like just very human. And like our country just was like, nah.
It's weird too because, you know, obviously we were a country like founded by Christians. But then, like you said, originally it was, you know, very uptight Protestants that I don't think liked any holidays. I don't know. I would just, or I think they were really trying to, because like the Roman Empire, they took the Celtic traditions and tried to like combine them with their religion. But I'm guessing the Protestants just thought that because it was combined with originally Celtic traditions and pagan traditions, they were like, gotta cut that out.
Right.
That, I mean, would be my guess.
Yeah, I fully agree.
But I think it's weird because since we still celebrate Halloween, I would think that they would much rather have it be a Day of the Dead than what it is now. I feel like to them, they would be like, this is a day of sin now. Like,
Right.
like just absolute debauchery and like, oh, Lord. Halloween expressed by the average person, like today, especially the average, like, adult, I think they would die.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of surprised.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not very religiously enlightened, but I think there are specific things where having any connection to the dead is negative. Like, you're not supposed to in some sense as well. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the
Wait, in
Protestants...
Christianity?
Yeah, somewhere in there. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Protestants didn't celebrate it because the Catholics did. And that was off of principle.
Yeah.
You know, and like, you know, just like kind of villainified
Oh, totally.
the thing.
But you know what I mean? I think that's kind of ironic that because that's like not what, you know, we believe in. So they ripped the really meaningful part that like Celtics had for it.
Right.
And because of that, now it's just left as a dressing as geese.
And speaking of like the removal of like certain things, so after what I was talking about in terms of like we had Halloween and like finally we have like the Irish come, right? The Irish come and
with their turnips.
And this like they come. I don't know if they came with the turnips, but they came and they conquered. No, and so by the 1920s and 30s, Halloween had become a secular, community-centered holiday with parades and town-wide Halloween parties, and there'd be entertainment, and this would happen with like schools and communities. But what happened is at this time, vandalism began to like plague society terribly. So a lot of communities were like, none of this. So by the 50s, town leaders had successfully like limited vandalism, and Halloween had evolved into a holiday directly maintained by the young. And due to the number of young children created during the 50s baby boom, the parties moved from like town centers and classrooms into the home.
Interesting.
Where they could be more easily accommodated, I guess, which I think is the downhill of Halloween. I think it needs to be community-based, and it does not need to be internally based. And I think we've kind of come back from that, but that was because, and this is crazy, between the 1920s and the 1950s, the century-old practice of trick-or-treating was also revived. Trick-or-treating was a relatively inexpensive way for an entire community to share the Halloween celebration. In theory, families could also prevent tricks being played on them by providing the neighbors' children with small treats. Cut down the vandalism. With that being said, there is a new American tradition that is now a $6 billion holiday called Halloween, and it is the second largest commercial holiday after Christmas. With that being said, speaking of shmoney, 1/4 of all candy sold annually in the U.S. is purchased for Halloween. That's bonkers.
That is bonkers.
That should be illegal.
For some reason, I totally blocked out the candy part.
Of the trick-or-treating?
Somehow.
What do you mean?
Like, I just haven't thought about that. Like...
At all? As like a tradition? Can you trick-or-treat in your neighborhood? They're really long roads.
We would... Oh, I totally forgot about this. This is like in the countryside. So obviously... we don't have like houses touching houses, and the roads don't have sidewalks. So they would have all the kids.
And drunk driving's allowed, so.
They would have all the kids go to like one house. Like this guy, and he had like a tractor with like hay in the back, and so we would all hop in the hay in the tractor, like a hayride, you know. And then we would go on the street to like houses.
Aww,
yeah,
that's kind of adorable.
I know. I totally forgot about that because when I got older, I just started trick or treating like in the city.
The city. Is that what we're calling it now?
No, it's a ton. It's a ton in the ton. You don't get a lot of candy that way. I'll tell you that. Because it's like, 10 minutes to the next house.
Yeah, sounds kind of depressing.
Yeah. But it was fun. I mean, it's cool.
Well, you're mostly hanging out with friends at that point. And
it's
these
fun
are pit stops.
Looking back.
Right. And it's kind of adorable when you just imagine it driving down the road.
Yeah.
So borrowing from European traditions, Americans began to dress up in costume and go house to house asking for food or money, a practice that eventually became today's trick-or-treating tradition. In the late 1800s, there was a move in America to mold Halloween into a holiday more about community and neighborhood getting-togethers than ghosts, pranks, and witchcraft. And parents were encouraged by newspapers and community leaders to take anything frightening and grotesque out of holiday celebrations. Because of these efforts, Halloween lost most of its superstitious and religious overtones by the beginning of the 20th century.
That's
so
depressing. But that's what I mean. Even those people, it's like they wanted it to be, which trick-or-treating, like, I don't know, if you're with parents and kids, it's still somewhat that wholesome community event.
Right. Because everyone has to be on, like, everyone knows that this is the day.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I can't reason this. Or, like, help me out here. Because it's like, young adults today, like, Halloween is just debauchery. But it's like, would young adults back then, when it was more religious, like, care a little bit more?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it was also like that, like, because young adults had nothing to really do.
I'm sure they'd be more likely to, I mean, young adults just do debauchery anyways. Right. So I'm sure it was in combination. But if it had a religious aspect today, I'm sure we would care along with the debauchery.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, like, they stated, like, that was part of why, like, they became, like, more of a in-the-house kind of thing, was to get rid of all the, like, the mischief that, like, young adults were causing, and just vandalizing stuff and just being a ruck. So I think part of the downside as an adult, the reason why all we do is, like, debauchery, is because there is nothing for us to do. Because, like, the trick-or-treating isn't meant for us.
Yeah, we don't have kids to take trick-or-treating.
And, yeah, and we can't go. And so what else are we supposed to do except dress up and try to feel again by drinking copious amounts of alcohol and doing dumb things?
Yeah.
Like, what else do you do?
Right. How else do you celebrate?
Mm-hmm.
But if we could all go build a big fire.
Right. In the forest.
In downtown Reno.
Well, yeah, there was a part in it that, like, probably part of the reason they stopped doing big fires was because it became, like, a hazard.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if you have regulated
you know how
fires,
much BLM land we got? Just open.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if you have regulated fires.
Right.
City controlled fires.
City-sanctioned giant bonfire?
It'd be insane.
We could totally do it.
And, like, it would be, like,
hot firefighters on standby.
Not dressed in costume, police
peeling
officers.
turnips.
No, I think that would be a good way to get a lot of vibes out. And you could just.
What would suck though? Because honestly, I feel like if they actually did do that, like nowadays, like you'd probably have to be like 30 feet back from the fire,
right?
And like.
La la la. I don't know. I think it'd be a good time. Do you have any, like, Halloween movie traditions or anything?
No.
No?
Nah.
Do you want to hear about the Halloween backstory?
To take a guess, I would imagine that just like before we had movies in general, we had oral tradition and stories, and like they told scary stories, and then that just like our oral traditions became movies, those became movies.
Yes. So a lot of it was stories and then plays.
And I've never thought about it like that. Because I was reading about like the scary stories, and I was like, man, I haven't heard a scary story like
I wish we did more
ever.
Oral tradition.
Me too. But then, yeah, I mean, I haven't heard any oral tradition ever, so.
Right. So, but yeah, so they started off as like.
But movies do still serve that purpose. Like
right. Right.
Yeah.
Because we can talk about it without reiterating the whole thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so speaking of movies.
Yeah.
In these movies, so it started off with verbal and then plays and whatever. And then you've got books like Frankenstein and whatever. And then there's arguments about like the first movie. But in American history, the main one seems to have been, the German. And there's in 1922, there's like a Dracula knockoff that kind of just came from the book. And so on and so forth. So yeah, these things kind of play off of each other.
Nosferatu? I know that movie's hella old.
Yeah, I think it might be that one. And then from there we get into like, you know, the classic Halloween franchise. And that's kind of all I have to say. But Halloween movies have now like fallen into two places where it's like Halloween and like Scream and Slasher, and then it goes into like the more like family friendly, like Beetlejuice and the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and things like that. So
Charlie Brown's old.
It is old, but it's great.
It's like 60s.
But I wonder, like, before people had like Halloween, I mean, before they had Halloween movies to watch, they probably just told stories, which is kind of sad that we don't do that anymore.
Books.
Yeah. Books. I've never read a scary book. Have you?
I used to read like really cheesy murder mysteries, but
yeah, you think that's really scary?
No.
No?
No, they weren't really scary.
Do you think you could read a scary book?
I don't know. Something tells me that would be
not like a psychological
terrifying.
thriller, like just an actual like horror. I just can't imagine anything.
You turn to the next page. And then he jumps out of the closet. I can't imagine. I don't know.
I was going to say, another huge religious, non-religious holiday we have?
Are you talking about Valentine's Day or Arbor Day?
Think Saints.
Mardi Gras?
Yeah.
Well, that's not like a...
It's 100% religious.
Well, no, I know. I mean, but Mardi Gras is specific to New Orleans.
Yeah, I know.
Like, we don't celebrate Mardi Gras.
I know.
But, like, Fat Tuesday is the holiday, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we should.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know. I mean, I would love to go to Mardi Gras. I'm just not Christian, so I feel like I can't just hop into Fat Tuesday.
I mean, because the whole thing is
it wouldn't make sense for me.
Right. Because you're not going to do Ash Wednesday the next day.
I would love to participate in the debauchery, but...
I don't even know if it's the next day. Right, because that's the day before Lent. And you're supposed to just go nuts.
Right.
Before you got to...
Which is so funny.
Hey.
It's just funny, like, the natural, just, like, human responses to things. Because there's no way that when they were like, all right, so we're going to have this 40-day period of, like, holy fasting and, like, repenting. I don't know what they do. Like, it's about giving up something to be a better person. And, like, I don't think they ever were like, so the night before,
we're going nuts.
Crazy.
Banana time.
There's no way.
No, I think it's like the normal
just
thing
the
for
natural human
like if you're going to go on a diet the day before, you're like, okay, I need to eat
it probably started
everything.
out, you're right. It probably started out as like, okay, we're going to do like a fast for 40 days. So then like eat a big meal before,
Right.
And then like, oh, we're going to give up alcohol this time. Okay, so I'm going to get really drunk before or something. And then like it just like spiraled
into Fat Tuesday, which is insane.
To showing your titties so people throw beads at you? Like, what? Insane.
Like,
so you literally turned into a prostitute the night before? That's bonkers.
Duh. How else am I supposed to go 40 days?
Without showing my titties to everyone.
No bread, no alcohol, and no tits? Come on, bro. No, it's definitely a man-made construct, though.
I wonder if that would be interesting.
How the Protestants?
They'd be so proud.
The Protestants.
Into the country that we turned into.
Our founding fathers would be thrilled. Anyways, traditional colors. Guess what they were of Halloween? Because now they're like purple and green and black and...
White.
Yellow and brown.
Oh. Yellow and brown.
I think to like same like Thanksgiving, like harvest.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
All right, so I'm going to tell you the last few things and you can pick what we talk about next. So All Souls Day and soul cakes go together.
I read about the soul cakes.
I have a big thing to say about the soul cakes.
Soul cakes. That'd be a good band name.
Yeah. Black cats.
I think I'm going to call you a soul cake.
I think that's a cute nickname. Black cats and ghosts on Halloween. That's the second one. And just like other... And then the lesser-known rituals and Halloween matchmaking.
Oh.
So where do you want to go?
So you celebrate Grandpa and get hitched?
Something like that.
Well, I'm guessing the black cats and all that wombo gombo is about witches and all that tomfoolery.
I didn't actually know that. I mean, I guess it makes complete sense. And once I read it, I was like, duh. But yeah, in the Middle Ages, people believed that witches avoided detection by turning themselves into black cats, which I was like,
Bro, have you heard, I don't know, I've read so much about, witches and, all their lore and, broomsticks. And somewhere, I remember reading about, them riding their broomsticks, having for some reason, the way I'm remembering it, this can't be right. I'm remembering them, applying, why ointment? I don't know. I'm thinking of, balms being applied to the broomstick. Maybe that's because of lubrication. But then, riding them.
What?
No, that's a thing. Look it up.
I think you might have missearched on Pornhub.
But I don't know what the ointment had to do with.
Well, I mean, you have to lubricate
But also,
a broom
the
if
things,
you're going to
right,
do that.
Right. But yeah, that was definitely a thing of them, riding their broomsticks. And then also, it said stuff about them either taking, psychedelics and so them, flying is obviously,
I like that one better. I like that alternative much more, actually.
Especially because the broomsticks back then.
Right?
When they were just sticks put together.
Yeah,
that can't be right.
No. That sounds like just terrible. There's no way. Be for real. Anyways, the other thing that superstitions from ancient Egypt, well, they really care about their triangles and they're really sacred. So, walking underneath a ladder
It's
was
the strongest shape found in nature.
Yeah. What about a hexapolyoid?
Gabagool. Because it's you, your partner, and God.
Oh,
when you get married, that's the strongest relationship found in nature.
Right. Anyway, so walking over a ladder, whatever, breaking the triangle is a huge thing. And then because of this, somehow these superstitions.
Oh, because it's a triangle. That came from all the way from Egypt?
I think the idea of just breaking triangles in general, and then they said to that's how we got walking under a ladder tends to be fairly.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, and then it also says that around Halloween we especially try to avoid breaking mirrors, stepping on cracks, and spilling salt. So our superstition comes out, but the superstitions do date back to the Celtic times.
Step on a crack.
Break your mama's
Your
back.
kid'll be black. I'm sorry.
You did grow up in the sticks.
In the broomsticks.
In the broom
that we rode.
Multi-purpose.
They don't have dildos in the sticks.
All right. So I think the broomsticks lead us right into ritual matchmaking. And so basically,
because once you can graduate from your broom to a real person.
I'm a real boy now. What?
Oh, it just made me think, what were the guys doing? They were the turnips. They're carving.
See if they can make it into her face. If you can, that's how you know you'll marry her.
Oh no, Isis.
So
bad taste.
So basically, there's a bunch of them, and the idea in theory was either you would figure it out from one way, or it would come into fruition the next year. And so many common ways were. There's two related to the apple and the bobbler. So one of them was that you would write the names of your wanted to be suitors, and then whichever one you caught bobbing was the one that would be it, right? The other one relating to apples. That's one of the alternatives.
You would write who you wanted, and then
on all the apples, any possible suitors.
Oh, multiple suitors that you want.
Or our options.
You put all your options and then whichever one. Okay.
So that was one way. The other one relating to apples was that women tossed apple peels over their shoulders, hoping the peels would fall on the floor in the shape of their future husband's initials. This also came with...
That can't be good if you like a Tom.
Right. Right. Or like a...
Or a Quincy.
Or a Zachary. Maybe. Because it's like a W. But yeah, Quincy's
There's got to be some
out of
unfortunate names.
How do you... Yeah.
Or like Matt.
Frank?
Can't be good.
Frank's probably impossible.
But everyone is named John, so that probably worked.
Right, and all apple, curve. So this one is kind of weird. So basically, they tried to learn about the features by peering at egg yolks floating in a bowl of water and stood in front of a mirror in a darkened room holding candles and looking over their shoulders for their husbands' faces.
Okay.
I don't know the logistics of that one.
I think we should try it.
I think that we should bring that one back.
It looks like a chicken.
I was going to say Danny DeVito.
Can I think of a guy that looks like an egg yolk?
There was also this huge part about like chestnuts. So at some point, I think it was in the 18 or 1900s, nuts were huge.
His jawline's pretty rough.
He's got a weak jawline. But nuts were like a big part of this, and I actually enjoyed that because, like I told you about, like in Armenian, in like Armenian culture, like there's a whole thing about the fall and nuts and spending a whole period of time busting nuts. So for October to be a designated, or like the 31st to be a designated
bust a nut
day,
yeah,
you would know exactly when it's happening, which I think is kind of cool. But basically, they would like write like initials or something on the nuts and throw them into the fire, and if it turned to ash or if it didn't, like it had some kind of symbolism. Another one here is, and this is also known as like a charm cake now more so, but there was in the 1800s a matchmaking cook would bury her ring into into mashed potatoes on Halloween night, hoping to bring love to whoever found it.
Wait, what? Cake.
No, mashed potatoes. Take off her ring and plop it in the mashed potatoes. And hope whoever found it would find love. And I think that's kind of a cute way to sacrifice your jewelry. I just like don't chew, so I would have just. She'd be like, "Where's my ring? All the potatoes are gone." And then the last one that I have here, we could. The last one I have is that young woman ate sugary concoction made out of walnuts, hazelnuts, and nutmeg before bed on Halloween night, and she would dream about her future husband. Aww. Which we actually have something like that in Armenian culture. There's I forgot what day it lands on. It might be Valentine's Day, but you eat a salty cookie and you can't drink any water. You have to eat it before bed and you can't have any water. Something like that. Armenians out there, correct me if I'm wrong. And you're supposed to, and the person in your dreams who brings you a glass of water is supposed to be your like suitor or like love or something. It's kind of cute, right?
So cute.
So everyone is eating a salty cookie before bed.
That's so funny.
I think it's a really sweet kind of.
That would be bananas, though. I'm kind of terrified.
To eat a salty cookie before bed and see if anyone shows up?
Yeah. Imagine if somebody did, though. What if it was like your dad?
Gonna be a spinster, alone forever. But yeah, I think it's a cute thing.
No, that's fun. I want to do that.
That one we're bringing back. Mm-hmm. Oh, and that goes back into the charm cakes, what they also do in New Orleans for Mardi Gras. They put the baby Jesus. Yeah, the baby Jesus. Charm cakes, usually whoever finds it. They do it on Easter, too. It's like a very common King's cake. And it's also done on Easter, and it's done all the time. So the charm and the food is like quite... Thing. Yeah, and I forget why. I know Armenians do... Oh, we do it on Easter, too, I think. Yeah, it's in the tall cake. So it's a huge thing to put things in food that you're going to swallow. But we can't have like Kinder eggs because those are choking hazards. But the religious people get to just personal belongings. And so the last thing I have is soul cakes. And these ones, do you want to talk about what you learned about soul cakes?
So I read that, so back to like trick-or-treating, it was like the poor would go around and the rich people would give them soul cakes. So in exchange for them praying for their deceased loved ones.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Why?
Well, because it started with Irish and Scottish immigrants in the U.S. In the 1900s, and basically they're called solars.
The people that do it?
That would like go around,
Mhm.
and usually children and people without any means went
Just
door to
'cause-
door offering songs and prayers in exchange for these small shortbread cakes, and that just makes me feel sad.
Yeah.
So now what I do think we should do and how we should bring this back is that we should on days like Halloween go give to the poor. Like we only do it on like Thanksgiving and Christmas. Like it's kind of ridiculous, but like
Right.
especially when like I just like we just stated like 1/4 of all candy is bought this for Halloween. It's like there's obviously the means, and it's like when it's getting cold and sad. So I think like if society was to adopt something, it should be bringing back thinking of the less fortunate on a day like
Definitely.
this, because this is such a terrible holiday if
Well,
you are less fortunate.
Yeah, well, exactly. It literally has just become just gluttonous and debauchery that's like meaningless and like it's really sad. And obviously, people are gonna have their opinions about what religious meaning it should have, but with more meaningful holidays, usually more like self-reflection happens,
Right.
And then you think of the less fortunate, and with this holiday losing all of its meaning also goes that us trying to be better people.
Yeah, and another thing that kind of brings it states on is like, yeah, one soul cake given, one soul saved, which is like, again, like that shouldn't. It's just so, because like back then people really did starve. Like in the United States, no one really, like starving is not an actual fear that is real. Now, whether you have what you want to eat or whatever is a different thing. But like starvation is not like a
Yeah.
fear. But like there's these immigrants that came from starving and are still starving, and it's like let's just give them a shortbread cookie. And I don't know, it just like made me really sad, and also made me think because they would go around like praying or singing like songs. Like, is that what Christmas carolers are too? Is that the same thing?
I don't know.
Because if they are, that makes me also depressed.
Yeah.
Because I always think about bringing joy.
Probably. I feel like now they seem like just,
Church people.
that are happy and go lucky. But probably, maybe like for money, like for the church,
Right.
just for like donations.
Right.
or
Which I
whatever.
think is like common, like as what
Yeah.
it is now.
Which, and also a lot of churches then would like,
feed people.
so.
The other thing that I have on here about the soul cakes, it was referred to going souling. And children would.
I feel like, I don't know. Obviously, they would like sing songs and stuff too, but there's something sweet about the fact that they would just give them something in exchange for them praying for a deceased loved one.
Yeah, no, that is very. Again, we can bring it back.
Like that form of currency is kind of swag.
Yeah, no, definitely. Paying for
I don't know.
prayer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Talking about prayer as a form of currency sounds not good, but
I mean,
I think the sentiment is beautiful.
valuable. Yeah. And then, so we already talked about how like people believe that ghosts came back to the earthly world. So basically, people were scared that if the ghosts recognized them, they would like follow them and stuff. So basically, to avoid being recognized by ghosts, people would wear masks when they left their homes after dark, so the ghosts would mistake them for fellow spirits.
Dude, I've never understood that. I mean, I like kind of, but like, who?
No.
I don't. What?
Because it doesn't like then you're like. The spirit, like, don't you think the spirit knows beyond your fleshly meat sack? And like, but anyways, and then the last thing I really have is vampires, because I also got into the like, where do some of like this, like, why do we like, what are even vampires, like, why did we come up with that? And basically it was a really good explanation for how disease spread is what people commonly believed somehow.
Cause like sucking on what?
I don't know.
I mean, it kind of
because they didn't believe blood transferred things, so like maybe vampires spread, but I don't know how they would think vampires spread,
and
like
not me,
and not mice, and not mice. They're like, oh, the vampires are spreading the disease, not the mice. So I'm not really sure, but
that's fun.
I'm sure in like 200 years they're gonna look back at us and be like, I can't believe, I don't know what, but
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. What was the most interesting thing you learned?
Well, I've just never really sat down and thought about the complete abstraction of the holiday and like how it's just completely meaningless now. Like there's still pockets of meaning, but it's not taught to us as something of
Value.
yeah. So that's kind of depressing. I don't know. But, you know, like most holidays, it's very personal on how you want to celebrate it. So,
yeah, I was going to say for me, I think the most interesting thing is like, I don't know, it's just really interesting to think about like how drastically things change over like one lifetime and how like crazy that is. Like to think like in the 20s, like 100 years ago, they were like, we can't be, this is just too much ruckus. And then like also to be thinking about like how like what is it like to be in the Roman times and like, you know, like to really feel the beliefs and feel the thoughts and be like, this is real. And like also like to have like a pope just wakes up one day is like, we're changing the date of the holiday. And people were like, yeah, could you imagine having a Halloween in like May?
no.
Right.
Well, didn't he? Yeah. What the?
Well, granted, they weren't celebrating like harvest. They were just
Yeah.
celebrating
but still,
saints. But like, yeah.
That would be upsetting.
Exactly. So I don't know. That's what I learned. But overall, I'm excited for this Halloween. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. This has been Crisis with
Kira.
and Isis. Happy Halloween. We love you.
Happy Halloween.